Hello, welcome to Anita the Pedagogue channel. Today we want to look at drama or play analysis. We are focused on Death and the King's Horseman by Wole Soyinka. Let's look at the language and style. Wole Soyinka's Death and the King's Horseman is rich in language, from the use of varied tone and mood, the rhythmic, poetic, free verse, the use of standard English and some Pidgin English, with some parts being Yoruba language and words, the use of proverbs and riddles, the use of folk tales, drums, music and dance, dramatic irony, symbolism, and ritual. Let's look at how Wole Soyinka used each of these elements. When we take the tone in the first and third acts, the tone is full of rhythm and poetic free verse. It is musical, reverential, mystical, and poetic. As we see with the Not I Bird, very poetic. In Acts 2 and 4, it is ironic as the focus turns to the English with a lot of satire from the girls' mimicry and also the celebrations at the European Club Ball, and also the arrest of Alund to the residency. In the fifth act, the tone is of regret and mournful as Alund fails to fulfill his duty, while Alund dies to save his family name and the Yoruba culture and people. Let's look at the use of the poetic or rhythmic free verse. The typical example is the Not I Bird recital by Alund, and also in this particular extract, where Alund says, "My reign is loosened, I am master of my fate. When the hour comes, watch me dance along the narrowing path, blazed by the souls of my great precursors. My soul is eager, I shall not turn aside." There is also the use of Pidgin English. Pidgin is an English-based Creole language spoken as a lingua franca across Nigeria. It is spoken by some Africans and predominantly by the uneducated in the African society. We see Amusa, "Madam, I arrest the ringleader who make trouble, but me, I no touch a gungun. That gungun himself, I no touch him. I no abuse him. I arrest ringleader, but I treat a gungun with respect. He doesn't express standard formal English." Also, we have the use of the Yoruba language. For example, Alund uses the expression "Olumiyo," which means sweet talks, to interrupt the music activities of the praise singer. Other words like Alari, Etutu, Robo, Ifawomi, Opele, Elegbara are used in the play to sustain their original meanings, as such words have no direct equivalence in the English language. Also, there's been the use of folktales, and folktales are traditional stories from a particular place that was originally passed on to the people in a spoken form. So let's look at some example. Lesson: Death came calling. Who does not know his raps of reeds, a twilight whisper in the leaves before the great Araba falls? Did you hear it? Not I, swears the farmer. He snaps his fingers round his head, abandons a hard-won harvest and begins. So this is a story within his dialogue in the Not I narration, and it is a typical example of a folk tale. There's also the use of proverbs, and the proverbs contribute to the cultural richness of the play and convey wisdom, values, and deeper meanings within the context of African traditions and beliefs. So, an example from the praise singer's dialogue. "Alund Oba, are you not that man who looked out of the doors that stormy day, the god of luck limped by? I say you are that man who chanced upon the calabash of Anna. You thought it was palm wine and drained its content to the final drop." Another proverb: "Life has an end. A life that will outlive fame and friendship begs another name. What elder takes his tongue to his plate, licks it clean of every crumb? He will encounter silence when he calls on children to fulfill the smallest errand. Life is Anna. It ends when Anna ends. Ealoja. No one knows when the ants desert their home. They leave the mouth intact. The swallow is never seen to peck holes in its nest when it's time to move for the season. There are always throngs of humanity behind the leaf taker. The rain should not come through the roof for them. The wind must not blow through the walls at night. So these are some examples of proverbs in Death and the King's Horseman. Riddles. A question or statement intentionally phrased so as to require cleverness in discovering its answer or meaning. They contribute to the cultural richness of the play and convey wisdom, values, and deeper meanings. Let's look at some examples of riddles used in this drama. I am the crier on the pathway of the village square, yet my abode is empty of the voice of men. This riddle refers to the praise singer who acts as a town crier, singing the praises and history of the king and the community. Despite being a vital figure in the village, the praise singer's home lacks the presence of people, indicating his solitary rule. Another riddle is what walks on his head, and this riddle alludes to the ritual of the king's horseman, who walks on his head during the performance, signifying his supreme spiritual state. Drums, music, and dance. Music, drums, and dance are key parts of African oral tradition. Music and drums are used as a medium of public announcement of the death of an important personality among the ancient Yoruba people of Nigeria. Soyinka uses music throughout the play to show the strength of the native Yoruba culture and the weakness of European influence in Nigeria. The play's opening stage directions instruct that European music such as tango is played weakly and the quality is poor, compared to the native drums which sounded vigorous, powerful, and full of strength. Ellison dances at the market while they play music and drums. He also must fall in a trance and die by dancing to spiritual music and drums, showing the importance of drums, music, and dance in the Yoruba culture. Joseph and Alund explain the importance of music and drums to the Pilkins. Dramatic irony. Soyinka reveals a twist when Ellison, Simon, and Jane are not aware that the messenger or the burden brought to the cell is Alund, but the audience are fully aware. This heightens the tragedy of the story, leading to the death of the main character, Ellison. There's also the use of symbolism, that is the chains. The chains in the play symbolize the lingering colonial influence and suppression of African people by the Europeans, even after the ending of the slave trade in Nigeria. These chains are the chains that were used on Ellison at the cells. Let's look at ritual. Rituals are symbolic actions or ceremonies that hold deep cultural or religious significance and are performed to mark important events, transitions, or to connect with the divine. A ritual suicide method is any means by which a person may choose to end their lives for religious purpose and is seen as a form of self-sacrifice for a greater good. And we see the main character, Ellison Oba, charged with this duty, which he failed to fulfill at the end of the day. Let's move on to the themes. Our first theme is life cycle or rebirth. Wole Soyinka demonstrates the transformative power of death, the interconnectedness between different aspects of life, and the profound bonds that exist within the cycle of birth, life, and rebirth. Yoruba have a fundamental belief that life is a continuum. The dead are not forgotten, the ancestors are honored and cherished as guides. The not yet born are also cherished, and new babies may in fact be ancestors returning to physical life. The most highly charged moments in the life cycle are the moments of transition from one type of existence to the next, that is, the passage into the physical world during birth and the passage into death. Ellison's responsibility as King's Horseman is to enact the transition from life into death in a ritual manner, to remind the entire community through his death that life is a continuum. Ellison has special powers and special rights. His request for the bride, although unexpected, must be granted because the claims of one whose foot is on the threshold of their abode surpasses even the claims of blood. Iyaloja realizes that the child born of Ellison and the bride will be extraordinary. That is neither of this world nor of the next, nor of the one behind us. As if the timelessness of the ancestor world and the unborn have joined spirits. Through the ritual suicide, the world can be renewed and rid of chaotic elements. Ellison's dance symbolizes the cyclical nature of life and the transformative power of death. When Ellison fails to commit the ritual suicide and ends up strangling himself at the end, Iyaloja tells his young bride to now forget the dead, forget even the living, and to turn her mind to the unborn, that is the future, which emphasizes the life cycle. Another central theme in the play is the notion of duty and sacrifice. Ellison, as the King's Horseman, has the responsibility to perform the ritual suicide to accompany the king to the afterlife. The significance of this duty is exemplified in Ellison's words as he prepares for the ritual. When the hour comes, watch me dance along the narrowing path, blazed by the souls of my great precursors. My soul is eager. I shall not turn aside. Here, Ellison emphasizes the importance of his duty and his eagerness to fulfill it. Amusa also explains that his arrest of Ellison is an official duty from his masters, the colonial masters. This duty is compared to Ellison's duty to his bride in the bridal chamber. The key message here that Soyinka elevates is upholding our various key roles in life and following through devoid of all influence and distractions. Ellison's failure to fulfill his duty is heavily due to his distractions, the bride, and also his love for the world. Alund, however, fulfills his father's duty, showing respect and honor for his culture, irrespective of his enlightenment in England as a doctor. Pilkins' duty to ensure the safety of the prince during the European Club Ball also led him to arrest Ellison, ironically, to ensure peace, which rather escalated the issue and led to the market women rioting for his release. The theme, cultural clash. One prominent theme in Wole Soyinka's play Death and the King's Horseman is the clash between different cultures and belief systems. Simon and Jane Pilkins do not understand the beliefs of the Africans, and they dismiss what they do not understand as nonsense, barbaric, and horrible custom. They see no harm in wearing the sacred Egungun garments to a costume party and mocking the ceremonial dance, even after Amusa and Alund point out the disrespect in their actions. Ellison's sense of tradition is so important to him that he is willing to die for it. By contrast, Simon's Christianity seems to mean little to Simon, who mocks Joseph for his devout faith in that holy water nonsense. Nevertheless, this man of little faith feels qualified to label Ellison as an old pagan. Simon does not understand or respect Ellison's culture, and he uses his authority to interfere only because he does not want to be embarrassed while the prince is visiting. This clash is evident in the interaction between the British colonialists and the native Africans. One example is when Pilkins and his wife Jane demonstrate a lack of understanding and disrespect towards the Nigerian customs and traditions in these codes. They speak of death as though it were something repugnant. And what kind of life can a man renounce to make death repugnant? This quote highlights the cultural gap and inability of the British characters to comprehend the significance of the ritual. Again, the mimicry of the girls also portray the poor treatment of the Yoruba people by the whites. The manner the girls treat Amusa and his constables show that in the new generation, which the girls represent, they will rise up for their culture. Characterization. The protagonist is Ellison Oba, who has a duty of committing ritual suicide. The antagonist is Simon Pilkins, as he is the one who opposes the duty of the main character, eventually stopping him from fulfilling it. The major characters are Ellison, Iyaloja, Simon Pilkins, Olunde, and Praise Singer, and the minor characters include Joseph, the bride, aide de camp, the residents, the prince, the women, and the girls. Let's begin with the character analysis of Ellison. As the play begins, it has been 1 month since the king's death. Ellison, the king's horseman, has been preparing for his journey to the afterlife. He is a people person and enjoys his time in the women's market. He has many wives and doesn't hesitate to pick new wives. When he enters the market the day he must commit the ritual suicide, he says the market is my roost. The women adorn him with rich, elegant clothes like the Alari. He is a man of honor and the Yoruba people of Oyo honor him. Because he is revered, he decides to ask the mother of the markets, Iyaloja, for her daughter-in-law to be as his wife. This distraction, coupled with others, causes him to fail to perform the ritual suicide. Ellison dishonors himself in both the living world and the afterlife by not committing the ritual suicide. He attempts to blame everyone, Pilkins, his bride, the gods, for his inability to follow through with his suicide. He eventually admits that his desire to continue the life he loves did not allow him to fulfill his duty to the Yoruba people. Olunde, Ellison's son, steps into this role and commits the suicide, which further dishonors Ellison because sons are not supposed to take over their father's roles in this way. Ellison is so distraught that he uses his prison chains to commit suicide. However, Iyaloja states he will arrive stained in dung from the king's stallion into the afterlife, emphasizing that his dishonor will follow him in death. Let's move on to Simon Pilkins. He is the British district officer for Oyo, Nigeria. He is bossy as he disrespects his subordinates who are natives and his wife Jane by telling her to shut up and take his instructions. He believes the whites are superior and considers the natives as sly, devious bastards. He is overconfident and refuses to listen to Jane, his wife, when she tries to help him understand the importance of local culture and tradition. When the prince visits his province, he is interested in impressing him. He goes on to dismiss the local tradition as mambo jumbo. He disrespects Amusa's Islamic religion by saying he will feed him pork, and insults the Christian religion when he refers to Joseph's Catholic faith as holy water nonsense. Pilkins views Ellison as a difficult subordinate, deeply rooted in Yoruba culture and traditions. He is successful in his duty to stop Ellison from committing the ritual suicide, but in the end, he is not successful in preventing him from ending his own life. He is also to blame, as Ellison would never have been dishonored in his death, and Olunde would still be alive had he not interfered. Let's look at the character Iyaloja. Iyaloja is the mother of the market. She serves as the mother figure in the drama. The market women obey and listen to her leadings. She has a cordial relationship with Ellison and serves as a mediator between the market women and Ellison. Due to Ellison's impending ritual suicide, she is willing to fulfill any desire he has. When Ellison demands to marry her daughter-in-law, with hesitation and disgust at Ellison's selfishness, she still offers her as a bride with much caution to Ellison to perform his duty when the time comes. She speaks in proverbs and riddles primarily when she communicates with Ellison. She serves as a symbol of the Yoruba culture. When Ellison fails to fulfill his duty, Iyaloja shows her fury by rebuking Ellison for not fulfilling his duty and breaking the order of Yoruba spiritual practices. She also blames Pilkins for the death of Olunde. Her final words to the bride of Ellison is to think of the future and forget the past. Now forget the dead. Forget even the living. Turn your mind only to the unborn. Alund. Alund is the eldest son of Alund, the king's horseman, and tradition demands him to be the next king's horseman. Alund is studying to be a doctor in England. Simon and Jane Pilkins helped him travel to England to achieve this dream against his father's permission. Alund therefore disowned him. According to Jane, Alund is better suited as a poet. When he returns to bury his father after receiving a cable informing him of the death of the king, he demonstrates deep understanding and appreciation of his Yoruba culture, while showing he understands the values of the English. His speech with Jane gives him up as an intelligent and wise young man. He disagrees with Jane Pilkins when they discuss the story of the captain who sacrificed himself at sea. Alund sees the importance of one man sacrificing their life for the good of others, like his father's impending self-sacrifice. At the end of the drama, he disowns and insults his father as eater of leftovers for not fulfilling his duty of the ritual sacrifice to maintain the spiritual order of the Yoruba people. He sacrifices himself to fulfill the role his father would not. Let's look at the character Jane Pilkins. Jane is Samuel Pilkins' wife. Jane is calm and a supportive wife to his husband, whose role is the district police officer charged with maintaining peace and order as well as the native culture. She is more responsible and tries to understand the native customs sometimes. She convinces her husband to apologize to their steward Joseph for insulting his Christian religion. She attempts to understand Olunde's view of Alund's death as a positive and why he is not upset. She is shallow in understanding some principles such as self-sacrifice. Her conversation with Alund shows that she does not see how the death of one for the greater good of others is honorable, even though, in contrast, she has no issue with the soldiers who are fighting in the Second World War. Praise singer. Praise singer has a vital role in guiding Alund to perform the ritual suicide. Again, he is charged with the responsibility of ensuring that future generations remember Alund and the sacrifice he made after being successful with the ritual suicide. At the commencement of the play, he leads the music and drums as Alund dances at the market. Through his interaction with Alund, the praise singer shows they are good friends, and on the fateful day that he is to die, the praise singer accompanies him. He leads the Alund to dance and chant while falling into a trance. He also serves as a spiritual guide and conscience for Alund while in a trance on his journey to the afterlife. He warned Alund of the effects of women on his mission and warned him against taking a bride at that crucial time. He says, "Beware the hands of women, weaken the unwary." He reminded Alund of his warning to show how betrayed he felt when he failed to commit the ritual suicide and rebuked him for failing to maintain the balance of the world. He says, "Our world is tumbling in the void of strangers, Alund." Let's look at the character Amusa. Amusa is a native Nigerian who serves as a native administration policeman. He has converted to Islam and not seen as part of the Yoruba cultural activists in the play. In spite of this, he still shows surprise and dismay at the Pilkins who wore the Egungun costume. This shows how he still respected the Yoruba culture even though he did not belong to it or believe in their culture. When he is mocked and prevented by Iyaloja and the women of the market from arresting Alund, he threatens to become violent, but the girls, who are the children of the market women, attack and chase him and his constables away, describing him as the eater of white leftovers, that is a messenger of the colonial masters. Aide-de-camp. Aide-de-camp is another colonial officer who attends to the prince. He offers additional soldiers to help arrest Alund. He is rude to Alund and calls him an impudent nigger because he believes the natives who have become accustomed to Western culture are arrogant or not deserving. The bride or the young woman. The bride is a young, beautiful woman. She was betrothed to the son of Iyaloja before Ellison demanded to marry her. Iyaloja, after hesitation, gave her to Ellison to marry. Interestingly, she was not consulted, showing that her opinion was not important. She looked sad and teary when she sat at the cell where Ellison was held in chains. She fulfilled her duty of closing Ellison's eyes after death and placing sand or earth over each eyelid. At the end of the play, it is implied that she is pregnant with Ellison's child. Iyaloja advises her to look to the future and forget the past. Joseph. He is the houseboy for the Pilkins. He converted to Christianity and turned back on his Yoruba customs. He says, "Master is white man and good Christian. Black man Juju can't touch master." Although not fluent in English, his diction shows he has received some formal education. He is also sensitive as he refused to respond to his master's call when he insulted his Catholic faith by referring to it as holy water nonsense. The Prince. He is the Prince of England. He visited the British colonies and attended the ball held for his at the Oyo Yoruba area. The Prince enjoyed the ball. According to Alund, he is brave since he traveled during the World War. And Jane was so excited to learn he was attending the ball. The Resident. He is ranked higher than Simon. He was once a district officer in Oyo area where Pilkins stations. He thinks every measure should be taken to uphold the English Empire. He chastises Simon for being unaware of Ellison's suicide plot sooner. He doesn't recognize Sergeant Amusa and his constables in uniform, as he expected something demeaning and reflective of native police officers. The King. 1 month before the play opened, the King passed away. He and Ellison were quite close. Ellison has a duty to accompany him to the afterlife. Women. They are the owners of the stalls in the markets. They dress Ellison in fine, expensive clothes and honor him. They joke with him and dress up the bride and prepare her for the bridal chamber. They are led by Iyaloja, whom they listen to and respect. Girls. They are daughters of the women who own the stalls in the markets. They are brave, wild, and well educated. They harass Sergeant Amusa and his constables when they come to the market to arrest Ellison. They also mimic the British colonial masters, showing how they treat the natives. Let's look at some likely examination questions. 1. What is the role and significance of Ellison Oba, the King's Horseman, in the Yoruba society? 2. How does Olunde, Ellison's son, represent the contrast between the old and the new generation of Yoruba people? 3. What are the motives and consequences of Simon Pilkins, the district officer, interfering with Ellison's ritual suicide? 4. How does Jane Pilkins, Simon's wife, relate to the Yoruba culture and people? 5. What is the symbolic meaning of the Egungun, the ancestral masquerade, in the play? 6. How does Soyinka use language, dialogue, and poetry to convey the different perspectives and voices of the characters? 7. How does the play challenge the notions of heroism, tragedy, and sacrifice? 8. What are the similarities and differences between the Yoruba and the British views on death, life, and the afterlife? 9. How does the play reflect the historical and political context of Nigeria during the colonial era and World War II? 10. What are the main messages or themes that Soyinka wants to communicate to the audience through the play? These sources help me to put together this analysis. I hope this lesson was useful to you. Put in your comments and questions and I'll respond to you. Do like, comment, and share. Until I come your way again, keep learning and be the best version of yourself.